It is the 200 level. Mike Carpenter in the basement studio on a Sunday morning. And no, it's not the podcast I was hoping to have, but it's the one that we will do regardless. Illinois loses to Ohio State 34-16. Once in a lifetime moment. Nope, it was not. 5-star day in many other ways. Absolutely. It was a beautiful day in Champaign, and the orange clad crowd at Memorial Stadium looked awesome. They sounded great. There just wasn't a lot of excitement to latch onto. And for lack of a better term, the game was kind of boring. Illinois didn't help matters with some of their mistakes. We'll get into all that. The one thing I wanted to start with today, though, and forgive me if I sound a little bit like an apologist almost, but I am not angry with how yesterday went. I think disappointment is entirely warranted. I think there's a reason we called this episode number one Bumma, which for fans of early 2000s rap, number one stunna is where that came from. But regardless, it was a bummer, and it was not what we were hoping for. And while I think we went in with fair expectations as to all the things that would have to happen for Illinois to pull off an upset, you still would have liked a little bit more. I think, if anything, if not a win, we were maybe hoping for an opportunity in the fourth quarter to go and win that thing or go and tie it. And you didn't get that because you were messy. Yet, as I'm sitting at the tailgate post-game, I just registered the fact that I was not peeved and I wasn't ticked. And I was, in a weird way, content. And I hope I can explain this in a way that makes sense. I've said for a long time, I don't need Illinois football to be great. Now, why not? You're good, so maybe we can take that next step. That would be amazing if we did. But I've said for many years on this podcast and all the way back to 93.5, I don't need Illinois football to be great. I merely need them to be good. That alone would enhance my football Saturdays. And as I sat out in Lot 31 after the game, it occurred to me that, well, you're good. You're Iowa, you're Wisconsin, but you're not number one Ohio State good. These were the same ways in which Bret Bielema Wisconsin teams were losing to number one Ohio States or Michigans back in the day, or the occasional Penn State that was top three. More on that later. But to me, it was a reminder that, well, wait a second. You didn't look like you just completely didn't belong. This was not a Tim Beckman, Lovie Smith shellacking. This was, in fact, a game where, man, if you would have done a few more things right, you might have had that chance for the 1-10 upset. And you didn't do those things. Okay, bummer, disappointing, but angry. I'm not, because these are the things that I was looking forward to when they hired Bret Bielema, hoping that maybe he would be the guy that would get us back to a place of respectability and being good. Consistently so, something that I've never seen in my lifetime as an Illini fan. And it just struck me as I was sitting out there in the tailgate lot. Okay, fine. We aren't elite, we aren't great, but we are still good. I am still encouraged by what this team can do for the final 5 games this year. And I can live with that. Now, what I would love to have someday in this podcast are conversations about college football playoffs, and we might still have that after the Washington game. I mean, if that goes well and you come back after a bye week and look impressive, we could start whispering about, well, what if you're 10-2? What chips would have to fall a certain way for you to get back in that conversation? I'm willing to have that conversation. I would be happy to have that conversation. But as it stands now, you're a 5-2 football team that's probably going to win 8 or 9 games this year. And I think, God dang, 8 or 9 wins for Illinois football? They've never won 9 games in back-to-back seasons. Ever. So if that's what I'm looking at, I'm not angry. I'm actually kind of happy. I mean, I'll give you an indicator of this. Today, this might sound really silly, but today my little project, for as nice of a day as it is outside, and I got fall break this week from teaching, my project is I took one of our tailgating buddies' tables, and I'm going to spray paint it so it looks like my cocktail height tables that have an orange block eye with a blue background. I'm doing that project today. Me and a friend are already kind of brainstorming how we're going to enhance our tailgate scene with a flatbed trailer and building that thing up. I wouldn't be having these conversations or these projects I'm doing as excitedly as I am if I were angry with the way that yesterday went. It was a bit of humble pie. It was a reminder that you aren't at that level, but it was still around that lot and around that stadium, something that I soaked in and thought, this is awesome. If for me, Illinois football arrival would simply be a good, consistent program, then I guess we've arrived to that. And there will be ups and there will be downs, but there's more ups than downs. And that, to me, is the key sign and the key differentiation between all the years of disappointment and where we're at now. To the degree where I'm not looking at yesterday's loss, which we will talk about in detail. I'm not looking at yesterday's loss as, we blew it. We had it right there for us, and that would have been the moment to catapult us to greater things. Well, it might have been, but it wasn't, and there are many reasons why it wasn't. And Bret Bielema said something to that effect in the post-game press conference, that we made great progress. I'm so proud of where we've come, but we have a ways to go to get where we want to be. I'm happy that they have those expectations. I'm happy that Bret Bielema wants to accomplish more. I'm just saying, from my perspective as a fan, right now, this is enough to make me really look forward to these Saturdays and make a whole production out of it and bring the friends and family. And those are lifetime memories. I know the game wasn't, but these are things that I kind of stockpile away in my memory bank because they're awesome. And they were fun enough when we stunk. But they're so much better when you get your friends and family arriving at the tailgate early morning. My God, by 8:30 in the morning, Lot 31 was a madhouse. I got there at 6:30, earlier than I usually do, and apparently there were cars lined up from 6 p.m. the night before to get into that lot. I got nowhere near my normal spot, and I'm okay with that. That's telling me that there's an interest level, the likes of which I've not seen in my lifetime. So what the hell, man? That's cool. And if that's a place to build from, so be it. But I am just taking all that sensory stuff that I saw and felt and heard yesterday and smelled, for that matter, with all the great grilling going on. My God, in the morning, just the smell of pork wafting through Lot 31 is enough to just bring a smile on my face right now. As I'm sipping on my White Russian and just looking around, I'm like, God damn, we look like a football program now. It didn't go the way you wanted to. We're going to nitpick, and that's a good thing to do when you have a good football program. Nitpick, criticize, get better, or at least try to identify the things in which they can get better, and look forward to your next game, which is a big one. And we'll talk about how that game is really kind of the swing between a great and a very good season for this team. Before I get too far ahead of myself, though, and I would love to hear, for those that are tuning in on this sleepy Sunday morning, please get that into the chat thread. A lot of crazy college football yesterday, and the Illinois-Ohio State game was not even at the top of most people's minds by the time that day was over, because it was a number one team looking like a number one team, and there were far bigger fish to fry for other Big Ten teams. So Illinois, hey, you aren't going to get docked that much for what happened yesterday. And all that said, there are still areas in which this team needs to get better if they want to achieve some of the things that I think they themselves would like to. But before I get too far ahead of myself, reminder that the best way to support the 200 level is to support our sponsors, including Hamilton Walkers in downtown Champaign, Steak, Seafood, and Spirits, my favorite restaurant in Champaign-Urbana, best old-fashioned in Champaign-Urbana, but the food. I was reminded a couple weeks ago when my wife and I went for our anniversary dinner just how freaking good that place is. Bone-in steak. We got this dinner for two. Shared a 14-ounce bone-in steak. It was meat butter. I mean, that's what it was. It was meat candy melted in your mouth. Good steak. Steak fries, which have an extra crisp to them. I don't know what they do, if it's double fried or what, but god dang, those are so good. We got green beans as well. I love their green beans. And before that, I get a little side Caesar salad. They bring bread out with both butter and herb butter. And it's just the service on top of that. You get pampered. And then you see the check and you're like, that ain't bad. For all that food and all that service, I've spent more at far less places. So don't let this idea of a steakhouse giving you a 5-star experience make you think that you're going to be paying New York, Chicago prices. You aren't. It is entirely reasonable, and it's just my favorite culinary experience in Champaign-Urbana. So that is Hamilton Walkers. Also, State Farm agent Brian Hansen online at brianismyguy.com. You want to know why Brian is such a good guy. I just got my birthday card from Brian. Now, it's not my birthday. It's about a week away, but these are just the little touches they do. I know some insurance agents do that, but knowing Brian personally, I can't speak to the fact that he's a great guy. He's so easy to work with when it comes to insurance needs, and we will be continuing to use Brian because him and his staff just make it so easy for us. That's brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Give them a call today at 217-841-4728 to get that furnace check scheduled. Our furnace kicked on a few times this weekend. It got chilly. It was chilly this morning. So we know ours is working well. We actually have our furnace check tomorrow, I believe. And they're also going to install a new Google Nest app because we use that for a thermostat. And they're just so easy to work with. I think what I appreciate the most about Dogtown is that with our annual package of a furnace and AC check, it's really out of sight, out of mind. They come twice a year. They make sure things are perm like a kitten. They are, even with an older system like we have. And there's none of that sort of traditional upselling or things that you get from HVAC stuff. So Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend at 217-841-4728. And finally, got to thank Owen Builders LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com. And what Luke and his staff do, apart from the expert craftsmanship, is they deliver in a timely fashion. So if you got a timeline with a contractor, you never quite know when that thing will get done. That's not necessarily the case with Luke and his guys. Communication is something that they excel at, and that is not something I take for granted when it comes to contracting work. So that's owenbuildersllc.com. All of them local, all of them Illini fans. So you can take heart in that. And of course, Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Appreciate them for we've been a part of them since really the get-go. So yesterday ran into Trevor, Isaac, and Harry Black and his dad, Mr. Black, which, as our Simpsons quoting group often does, it was such a pleasure to meet Mr. Black from the Camp Krusty episode. For those that are Simpsons fans, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it was great, man, to see Harry, who flew in from the East Coast, his dad up from Florida, and they drove down for it. And I'm really glad that Harry got to see that lot in that stadium the way that it was yesterday. The game, of course, under-delivered, but the atmosphere was something he didn't get when he was a player here for Tim Beckman and 1 year for Bill Cubitt. So that was a treat to run into him and Isaac and Trevor and be able to, all four of us, catch up. And we had so many good times at 93.5 and on the podcast Beyond. It's cool to have still a chat thread with Trevor and Isaac for football and basketball that goes through the year. And then I still will chat with Harry quite a bit. And we're just sending Simpsons memes back and forth. That was awesome. The friends and family that were out there, it was awesome. And I'm not just trying, trust me, I'm not trying to sugarcoat a turd here. I understand the game wasn't good. We'll get to that. I'm just saying I just can't be angry after the day and all the surroundings. And then you walk in the stadium and you look around the expanse of the 60,000 people orange clad, maybe 55,000, because there were probably 5,000 Ohio State fans in there sprinkled throughout. More difficult to find that red within the orange, but they were there. And they travel. And as a Yankees fan, I can't really give them much grief because Yankees fans travel. And Ohio State's good. And they got a big fan base. And it's understandable. They are a minor league NFL team that won a national title, and they'll probably go undefeated in the regular season this year, and they will be competing for a national title yet again. That's how good they are. But the day itself was top-notch. The game itself was not. And I think it's okay for us to kind of jump in here and talk about the disappointments of the game, specifically the mistakes and the miscues that you yourselves did as a team. 3 turnovers, you're not going to win that game against Ohio State, losing that battle 3-0. It's not going to happen. I think that Luke was uncharacteristically messy, and that will happen when the defensive competition steps up to that degree. You go from Purdue to Ohio State in 1 week, that's whiplash, I would imagine. Still, Luke, in the second half, I thought, started to make some really good throws. You saw some tempo, which Bret Bielema really, in a fairly angry fashion, talked about in his post-game press conference as something they need to do more of, and maybe so, because Luke, in that passing game in particular, looked awesome. I think that defensively, I don't have a lot to complain about, so I'm doing my grievances first. So I'll get to the defense later because it's mostly positive. Special teams cannot have those blunders, and the bad snap. I actually was out in the concourse watching the replay of the play before the bad punt snap and the knee on the ground, which was Cole Russ coming back from being pushed out of bounds, but he hadn't gathered himself before he made the catch. That is the rule. Okay, fine. It's fourth down. You punt it away. Oops, you don't, because your knee is on the ground. These things cannot happen. That is amateur hour. It's Benny Hill music, bullcrap, and that cannot happen. I think that stuff is probably what fueled Bielema's anger, which, again, I didn't feel anger after the game or a whole lot during it, but I would imagine that he's waking up today and thinking, God dang it, we spent all week instilling a game plan. We had everything in place to pull off this upset, and we shot ourselves in the foot. And I think that's the big takeaway. You as a team played a C+ game when you needed an A+ game. And that grade only got docked that much because of these mistakes. There were a lot of positives, which we'll talk about, but those don't matter when you make those mistakes at completely inopportune times and then give the ball to an offense that will not make those mistakes. They're too good to make mistakes at Ohio State against a team like you. And it would probably take until they play in the college football playoff a team to really rattle them in any way, shape, or form. Well, you didn't rattle them yesterday. In fact, they rattled you a little bit, and feels like you took the bait in a way. And what I mean by that is I would assume that the team came in, guns blazing, rearing to go, and then you kind of fell in that trap of, oh, they're the number one team, they're uber talented, and you allowed yourself to get flustered in a way that I don't think that Bielema himself was probably anticipating. I think Bielema truly thought they were going to win the game yesterday. I know coaches have to do that, but in his heart of hearts, I think he did think they were going to pull it off. That to me would be the only explanation for the anger with which he talked about all this stuff at the press conference afterwards. So that wasn't good. I will get this out of the way. These games don't need to go 3 hours and 45 minutes. It is not a great product. It's not. I'm really tiring of these 4-hour Lawrence of Arabia marathon sessions with college football. It starts and ends often with the officiating. Illinois did not lose the game with because of the officiating. If the officiating had been more in Illinois' favor, maybe you do have that one-score game going in the fourth, and we got a little more excitement. But I do want to preface this by saying that was not the decisive factor of the game. Nonetheless, talk about amateur hour. Get your shit together. It is so frustrating in a stadium or on TV to watch these slogs of games and these nincompoops that cannot make basic freaking calls. Unfortunately, today, we have the discourse because one of these officials was a female. And she did not have a great day. So you can imagine the discourse on Twitter. I'll save you the clicks. Don't go into that cesspool. But it was bad enough to apparently necessitate tweets of people saying, well, that's what you get for DEI hires. Well, I'll say this, though. If we're just talking about it objectively, she did not have a great day officiating. That crew did not have a great day officiating. And I know Ohio State fans could point to a few plays themselves. But all I'm asking for, and it's not much, just the basic stuff. And one thing that really pisses me off. See, I said I wasn't angry. And I'm not, if you listen to this podcast, I do not try to go at officials unless it's really bad, because it's what it is. It's humans in zebra shirts, and they make mistakes, and that's fine. I can live with a few mistakes, but what I get tired of is repetitive mistakes, basic stuff. And I am really fed up with this let a run play go and go and go, and they swallow their freaking whistles when it's forward progress clearly, and then there's a fumble in a mass of 8-9 people. No shit, you can't overturn it because you can't see anything. You can't see anything of the replay. So how about a new default? How about when a runner gets stood up and he's there for 3 or 4 seconds, you blow the freaking whistle and you blow the play dead? I'm speaking about the Khalil Valentine fumble. You could go back 2 weeks ago, the Caden Fagan fumble. blow the play dead. It's clearly over. No, Illinois doesn't win if those, well, the Caden Fagan thing could have been disastrous, but fortunately it wasn't. No, Illinois doesn't win yesterday, even with those being flipped. If it's a but make the simple calls. Ohio State fans would not have complained one bit if that pass interference on Bowick down the sideline in the first quarter was called a pass interference. It was clear as day. Yes, it was that lady ref that was in front of it. Ugh. We got to do this discourse. We have to do this. No, I'm going to keep it broad. I'm going to paint a broad picture about college football officiating. It sucks. It stinks. It elongates the games to an excessively long length where it doesn't have to be. The NFL, yeah, they make officiating mistakes, but it's 3 hours and you're out. I like football and I like movies, but I don't need to see a 4-hour football game and I don't need to see a 4-hour freaking movie. Get it done. College football and the ads and the freaking Limu Emu and all this and oh my God, it drives me nuts. It's a bad product sometimes and it gets in its own way and it just, I got better shit to do sometimes than watch yet another group of officials congregate in the middle of the field. What do you think, boss? I don't know. Is it I'm going to go review it now. And then it takes him 5 minutes and he still gets it wrong. God dang, man. Is it an easy job? No. But please, world's smallest violin for the officials. Would I sign up to do it? No. But if I did, I would hope to God that I could make just basic freaking calls, like spot the ball accordingly. Or, oh, wow, that guy was pushing him for 5 straight yards. That might be, what do they call it? Yeah, pass interference. My God. This is simplistic stuff for a game that if people in the balcony can see that blatant call, then the one right in front of it should as well. It got to the point where, my frustration yesterday was that nothing seemed to be going Illinois' way, and a lot of those were self-inflicted, but a few of them were just close calls against a really good defense. There was a time where Luke ran to the pylon, and he did hit the pylon, but the ball was not across the plane, so we get the ball at the 1-inch line, and thank God I exhaled when Lunny had a great 4th and goal play call from the 1-inch line where they did that pitch out, and it worked beautifully, thank goodness. But before that, I'm like, God dang it. And I didn't say dang it, probably. I don't know why I'm, cleaning up my language now after my diatribe. But, and as someone in front of me rightly pointed out, like, Carp, the ball didn't cross. I'm like, I get it. But it's just, could we just get a break? Like just one stinking break after the blown PIs and I know that's going to sound, and if you're an Ohio State fan listening to this, you're like, dude, yeah, come on, get over it. But I'm speaking more as a whole. It drags the game down. It makes what could be more fun less fun. And college football isn't doing a damn thing about it. They aren't holding officials accountable. There's no commissioner for college football to say, hey, wait a second, this game is way too long. And it's actually bordering on straight up boring. Of course, people are going to keep watching. Of course, people are going to keep buying tickets. That doesn't mean the product can't be improved. And here's an idea, because it's all about the money anyways. If you got a 3.5-hour game, wouldn't it make more sense to have an 11, 2, 5, and 8 o'clock games? 4 different TV windows, and you actually operate like the NFL, and you have games that go 3 hours, and you're out. It's not that hard. They figured it out. And no offense to the Marching Illini, but do we really need a 20-minute halftime show? I know that the idea is we're going to have the Marching Illini or any marching band do their thing. That's fine. They can do it in a 12-minute window. Ask college football players. You like those 20 minutes? No. They're sitting on their hands. They're ready to play again. They don't need 20 freaking minutes. I don't need 20 minutes. I finished my Chick-fil-A sandwich. I had 10 minutes left in the freaking halftime period. Move it along. Am I getting old and surly? I don't know. I'm sorry. The fact that my angriest takeaway yesterday was the games are too damn long. I don't know what that says about me as a fan or my age or what. It annoys me, as you can tell. God. It's why, like when I watch the NFL today, and I'm excited for the Bears game tomorrow, but I know I'm not going to be investing 4 hours in that garbage. Man, sorry, guys. Let's talk about the good. How's that? Let's talk about the good. You have a really strong passing game, and you have good receivers. that are all doing something for you. Your top 4 wide receivers are pretty darn good. Hank Beatty stole a good game. Colin Dixon, big-bodied receiver, another good game from him. Hudson Clement seems to be coming out of his shell. Justin Bowick, big target, deep target, end zone target. Those are your top 4. That's pretty good. You're going to score points in these last 5 games. Cole Rusk, coming out party for him. Great to see. And Luke Altmaier, when he gets in rhythm, is still a great quarterback. So I know yesterday that could have been the build him a statue game. You didn't get it, fine. But this guy can still go 10-2 this year. He still could. They could go 9-3. And at that point, I'm probably still saying he's the best quarterback that I've seen here. And I watch Kirk Kittner, but Luke's tremendous. So you have a passing game that is very strong. And on top of that, your pass blocking has gotten so much better. And to me, the unsung hero of the game is the freaking offensive line. They look good. And they kept Luke upright. They got some rushing yards. Ohio State, their dominance showed and flashed when they needed it to. And they made plays, including Reese, who is a freak off the edge. Yeah, that's going to happen. You can live with that. No, I'm leaving that game oddly more encouraged about the offense than I was going in. Thinking, well, you aren't facing that kind of defense again, so you should do pretty well the rest of the year and get 30-plus points a game. I mean, that's my expectation. Why wouldn't it be? Because that's what you've done in every game not named Indiana and Ohio State. So the offense, to me, overall, I think after the bye week especially, get him healthy. Hopefully Caden can still play despite that shoulder. Khalil Valentine, that didn't look good. And that would be a bummer, but let's just brace ourselves accordingly. But Aiden Laughley looked good, and this is why having 3 running backs is a huge advantage, a coup in some ways. Okay, so passing offense and offense in general, I still feel good about. I feel good about Barry Lunny. I didn't really have any issues with his calls yesterday. I thought that when it came down to it, it was, a good defense making plays early. You got behind the 8 ball, but yet they still kind of stuck with things and ended up scoring more points on this Ohio State defense than any team had before. And almost got that late garbage touchdown to get in the 20s, which would have been amazing. But you did more against that Ohio State defense than any team had so far. And I think that bodes well for the rest of the year because I do think that Ohio State defense, yes, in fact, might be that good. Okay, so that's a positive. Defense, I know they gave up 34, but when you think about all the short fields that they were put into, or all the bad positions they were put in, given short fields because of the offense or special teams, I think Aaron Henry and that defense did their job. And what was it? 2 long drives for Ohio State, but other than that, short fields, you held them to some field goals. You tackled well against an offense with 2 freaks at wide receiver. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is insane. And when Cardinal Tate is almost a mere afterthought after Jeremiah Smith, that tells you a lot. Sayin is a very good quarterback. He's very efficient. I know he didn't pressure him, and that is an issue. But if your thing is bend, not break, I think you showed that if you tackle and keep things in front of you, that can work, given that you have an offense that you think can score in bunches. So I leave that game more encouraged. I saw a bounce-back game from Matthew Bailey. I saw Juice Clark going head-to-head with Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate, mostly Smith, if I recall, and then getting that one call that was overturned on the sideline where it looked like Smith caught it, but Juice got his hands in there and knocked it just loose enough for them to overturn it. The kid's a gamer, so you feel like between him and Torrey Cox, okay, maybe we're okay on the outside because Torrey Cox had a decent game. No, I thought overall you feel even better about the defense. Okay, so wait, I'm leaving that game feeling better about the offense and the defense. Okay, sweet. David Owano hits field goal. Great. Not unexpected. Of course, there was the bad special teams play, but yeah, it didn't rain and pour like it did at IU when it came to special teams. So I don't know. Is it weird that I'm leaving that game more encouraged than before? I don't know. I'm kind of entering the bye week feeling like, okay, everything that they want is still kind of right in front of them. And let's just get this out of the way right now, too. There is a possibility that your 2 losses this year are to the 2 best teams in college football. Who's 1-2 tomorrow? Ohio State's 1. I think you have to put Indiana number 2 after what they did at Oregon and how they dominated the second half. I mean, Oregon's possessions. You read what they did in the second half. I think it was field goal, punt, turnover, it was just They couldn't do anything against IU, and IU offensively is just efficient, and they just grind you down with efficiency. They like, if you're an Oregon fan, that was a slow, painful death in that fourth quarter yesterday. So those are the 1 and 2 teams in the country, right? Okay, you lost to them. I wish you wouldn't have lost the way you did IU, and I wish you would have made as many mistakes against Ohio State. Maybe you had a chance in the fourth quarter. But I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I can live with that. And that might sound defeatist, or come on, Carp, don't you demand better? I don't demand better. I don't know if I even expect better. I would have liked maybe a chance for a once-in-a-lifetime win against either team. But as it stands now, you're 5-2, and your 2 losses look to be against number 1 and number 2 that are on a collision course for Indy. And both will be in the college football playoff. I mean, it's a given. Indiana is not losing more than a game this year in the regular season, and I have to look at their schedule, and Ohio State's just going to run roughshod through the regular season. You think Penn State's going to compete with IU? Yeah, right. Those are your 2 best teams in the Big Ten, and you lost to them. Bummer, but if you are still hoping to be very good to great, it's okay that the 2 teams you've lost to so far look to be elite, and they do. Now, that coupled with a few other things yesterday in college football, it's I guess a little schadenfreude that one takes when other teams lose and have worse days than you do. Illinois didn't even have like the 30th worst day in college football. However many teams played yesterday, let's say 120 FBS teams. Illinois might have, for the 60 losers or whatever, Illinois might be right in the middle, if not lower. I mean, it wasn't that bad of a day comparatively. You want Penn State losing at home to Northwestern and looking like you don't care. So James Franklin's done. Though I was texting with Trevor and Isaac yesterday thinking, wouldn't it be funny if they just kept him? To me, now it would be funnier if they kept him. And Drew Aller's done for the year. That's unfortunate. Like I always thought the kid was massively overrated, but you don't wish for an injury. And Penn State fans wake up today and they feel like their program is dead. Kind of like that. That's fun. Wisconsin gets shut out at home and gives up 30-plus points to Iowa. Dead. Done. Zombie Luke Fickell. By the time you play them November 22nd, man, Brett's going to want to pour it on in that one, man. Oh, he's licking his chops. Didn't get it 2 years ago. You mix in that like funky 2-point conversion that Fickell and Wisconsin converted with the whole offensive lineman number mumbo jumbo. No, it's gonna be bloodbath city up there. So yep, Wisconsin, they're dead. Michigan State, John Smith's not the guy. I feel bad for my wife, Michigan State fan, and she just shook her head. And I'm thinking, man, you guys had a worse day than Illinois. A lot of teams did. Michigan, I think this also speaks to USC, which I'll get to in a second. Michigan under Sharon Moore. Well, this is what you get for being an arrogant program that thinks that you can just say, okay, interim coach, you cried and shed tears of joy or tears of whatever for your fallen cheating soldier, Jim Harbaugh. And here's the job, Sharon. It's Michigan. You're a Michigan man, I guess, and anyone can win here. Wrong. Arrogant pricks. I'm sorry. You just hire Sharon Moore and think it's going to be okay. The arrogance is astounding, and they're dealing with it. So, hey, you want to take some schadenfreude from yesterday at other teams' misfortunes and other programs that had a far worse day than you did? Go right ahead. I am. I went to sleep great last night. I mean, the Benadryl helped, but I slept great last night and woke up thinking, hey, things aren't so bad. We're 5-2. Our 2 losses are to IU and OSU, and they're probably CFP shoe-ins, and our 2 wins against Duke and USC are looking pretty darn good. And hey, Purdue, if they just want to throw in the pick 6, they win at Minnesota, but they did throw the pick 6. And Brian Brown is kind of mistake prone. But I'm just thinking, okay, wait a second. I came into the season saying 9-3, and that they'd be very good. But last year you were probably ahead of schedule, so I could see the 9-3 mirroring itself, and you would do it again and have a couple of disappointments, but I would not be unfulfilled with such a result. And that's right there for you. And other programs are floundering and have so much uncertainty. And I'm thinking, I don't have a lot of uncertainty. I know we're losing Luke next year. I know there's going to be positions that you need to go out and get dudes, but with the excitement from the fan base, with the NIL money probably just going up and up and up, with Bret Bielema being the stable guy in the middle of it, I don't know, man. I feel overall still very good about the state of things. And I think most Illini fans probably do. No, it's been an interesting start to the season where even though you're 5-2, there's been enough halves or quarters or even full game performances where maybe it doesn't feel like the most triumphant 5-2, but man, don't sleep on the two quality wins you do have in Duke and USC. And don't sleep on the fact that after this bye week, you could technically go out and win the other 5. And you can be afforded to slip up and go 9-3. I would say to you right now that less than 9-3 would make me think, well, what happened? Not in some disastrous way, but I mean, 8-4, meaning 2 losses in the last 5, would say that you lost one that you probably shouldn't. And I know Northwestern beat Penn State, but you should beat Northwestern. Penn State was a dead team walking. I would imagine there's going to be more on the line for Illinois in a high-quality bowl game or maybe CFP at-large discussion where they will not lay an egg that day like Penn State just did. Yes, Northwestern will be plucky, but you should be able to beat plucky at home. Same with Maryland. Same with Rutgers. Those are all home games. That could see it at 8 right there. Wisconsin, they're dead men walking. That's 9. So that leads to what comes after the bye week. Washington. And I know that going out west is tough. I know Husky Stadium is a great environment. It looks really cool. I should probably get out there for a game sometime. They're going to Michigan this week. And that's a little cross-country dipsy-do there for Washington. A team that is talented, to be sure. But a team that under Jedd Fisch is also a bit messy. They looked rough against Rutgers in that first half, and then they turned it on because they got the talent. They figured it out. If they play their A game against you, that's going to be tough. Hard to see a win in that situation. But under Fisch, they often play B- games where they don't have to. I'm not going to do the transitive property and say that you fared better against Ohio State than they did. All things considered, those games probably were pretty similar. And overall, it's probably at a neutral site, a 50-50 proposition between Washington and Illinois. And you're on the road here. But I do think for Bret Bielema and the emotion that he displayed yesterday, this is going to be a game that he's laser focused on because in his mind, we want to make the playoff. Well, okay, great. Now you can't mess up. So how does this team respond after the bye week? I'm not angry. I think they are. And that's okay. If they channel it and come out and put their best game of the year, put their best effort forth against Washington. I could see that happening. I'll sit here and tell you right now, 13 days ahead of that game, I feel good about it for a myriad of circumstances. And I actually think that yesterday and the way that it went only gives you the fuel within the Smith Performance Center to be more ready for that game than you've been in any game so far. Because right now in that Smith Performance Center, they're 5-2. But those 2 losses loom large. And they feel like they laid eggs in the biggest moments. Well, there's not many big moments in November. Those need to be take care of business games. But this one against Washington is a possible, maybe not statement game, but I think within those locker rooms at Smith Performance Center, it is for themselves to say, wait a second, enough of this BS. We've been kind of messing around a little bit. We need to reestablish the fact that we are a college football playoff contender. That's not me saying that. I think that's what's in their minds. 1-0 mentality, they say that. I get it, but I know the undercurrent that they're thinking about, while not maybe verbalizing it, is we want to be in that discussion. We want to be one of those 12 teams. Well, you can't slip up. There's no way now that a 9-3 Illinois, I think, makes the college football playoff. And 10-2, though, with your only losses to Ohio State and Indiana, I think you're in. Like, guaranteed. We'll wait and see what other teams do. I mean, Oregon is probably going to finish 10-2. Do you leave them out? No. Michigan, that ain't going to happen. Stop. USC, that's a good win for you, but man, they go to Notre Dame and they have a tough schedule. I mean, if they go 10-2, then yeah, they're in 100%. And if they go 9-3 against the schedule, they're probably in because they're USC. But the Big Ten will get 4. And you know it's going to be Indiana and Ohio State. Okay. You know it's not going to be Penn State and it's not going to be Michigan. Throw them out. You know it's probably going to, Oregon will probably be an at-large because I think they'll keep winning. Okay. Who's number 4? It could be you. It could be. And what that is a conversation that if you beat Washington, yeah, I'm broaching it. Like full bore, you beat Washington. Let's talk. Let's talk. But you got to beat Washington. Because if you don't, we aren't having that conversation. And now we're merely in the conversation of, well, what would qualify as a very good year? As I have said before, 9-3, which means win out. And all of a sudden we enter November thinking, okay, guys, take care of business. You can have your arms folded. You're thinking, all right, show me. If you beat Washington, I think that's big for this fan base that is not down on this team, I don't think. But I think, again, the manner in which you lost those two games, and especially Indiana, was just so like blew people's minds that people don't feel as good at this 5-2 as they did, let's say, after 6-1 last year against Michigan when you got that win. And I know the record was better then anyway, but the vibes were so high after Michigan. You've yet to really have that because USC was so soon after Indiana. But you beat Washington. I think you just could have a slow climb back up in excitement and fun throughout the month of November with not the sexiest schedule, but one where you're thinking, man, we're 6-2 after Washington. All right, guys, 1-0 mentality for these last four might get you to where we would all be ecstatic. So, hey, it's right in front of them. Cliche as that may sound, but okay. So let's see here, everybody. We got a lot in the chat thread. Going to start with Jason. Listening to Bielema's presser toward the end, there really seems like a disconnect and frustration growing with him and the assistants game calling. Yeah, he has, Jason, the last couple of weeks seemingly called out Henry last week and then Lunny this week, though he did take the onus back on himself a little bit, but you wonder if that's just him kind of catching his tongue and saying, whoa, I might be sounding a little bit too strong about this. So it's something to pay attention to. I do think, though, Jason, that it would surprise me if there were actual animosity or something like that amongst the staff. I think that Bielema inspires from his staff and players, by all accounts, a lot of loyalty. They love the guy. I mean, Lunny got emotional talking about him sometime during press availability early in the season. I think it's just competitors, and I appreciate the candor from Bret Bielema, and I think that was just candor. Does it mean anything's going on there? Does it mean there might be a heated conversation today? Perhaps. But I think at the end of the day, though, Bret Bielema knows that Barry Lunny's a really good coordinator. I think that Aaron Henry was fine yesterday. I don't really have any issues with his game calling. But, yeah, interesting point, Jason. I'm not going to dismiss it, but I also just wonder if that's not competition brewing between those guys. Also from Jason, bonus is we aren't Penn State, Wisconsin, or Michigan State. They're all looking at possible coaching changes soon. Jason, of those three you mentioned, I got to think all three are making changes. It will be a crowded market. And, of course, Penn State will get the top of the pecking order. They'll pay that buyout. They have no choice. And then Wisconsin and Michigan State. You know, I was talking to my wife about it yesterday, and I'll peruse other fans subreddits. So I was looking at the Michigan State subreddit yesterday. I was looking at the Penn State subreddit, and the Michigan State one, they hate John Smith because they think he's milquetoast, vanilla as heck. And he kind of is. His name's John Smith. Like, that's, if there's any John Smiths listening, it's not, I'm not just saying your name. I'm just saying it's really common. And you look at his face, and if you just put him in a lineup of guys shopping at, for Docker's pants at Kohl's, I don't think you could pick John Smith out from Joe Schmo. He's just there. And they suck badly. So after they get shithoused by Michigan in that rivalry game, which will happen. I mean, Michigan's not great, but they will murder Michigan State. Then you'll have empty bleachers the rest of the year, and then he'll be gone. They have no choice. So, Jason, they'll all be gone. And it's a shame that we only play one of those three this year. Damn. Why couldn't it be Penn State and Michigan State, which you beat Michigan State last year? You lost to Penn State. It would have been great to get a Penn State return game this year because you would beat them. They're done. They are checked out, man. And I love it. I love that creepy, culty, Happy Valley waking up today and just like miserable. Well, I don't know. Sucks to suck, guys. I'm not going to get into the karmic balance of things after everything that transpired with the Paterno-Sandusky mess, but they don't deserve football happiness. They don't. If there is such a thing as karma, those creeps don't deserve success. So in that way, I hope they keep Big Game James and they then they just kind of flounder to 7-5 and wait until the buyout isn't $50 million, but they will probably get rid of him. From Anthony, the Illini did put enough pressure on the Buckeyes that forced them to make tough passes. Unfortunately, they made all those hard passes, which I feel showed how elite they actually are. Anthony, that's fair. And also thank you to you and your dad stopping by yesterday. I was enjoying the Garrett's popcorn during the Cubs game last night, which was a bummer for sure. But yeah, Anthony, that's a fair point. They did get enough to force the ball out quicker from Sand, but he's super efficient. So credit to him. I could sit here and say, well, he's got that offensive line and he's got 2 NFL wide receivers. Well, that's true. But the dude still makes the throws. And he looks really good. I mean, credit to Ryan Day for starting a guy that people were not sold on, a younger guy, but they had clearly prepped him. So there's some player development there. And he will probably take them. I think they win it all. I mean, what if it's Ohio State and Indiana in Indy? Close game. Okay, each of them get a top 4 seed. And then they just play again the national title. It could happen. I know an SEC school will probably have something to say about that, but it could happen. Okay, this is also from Jason. Crazy thought, if Illinois wins out, is it possible that their only losses to the 1 and 2/3? Yeah, that's what I think, Jason. Also from Jason, Luke's stats against top 10 teams, not good at all. That is true. 2 TDs, 8 interceptions, and 1 fumble against top 10s. Yeah, I think that it's fair to criticize Luke for his performance yesterday. This is a senior quarterback, third year in the system. He's got to be better than that. I think it's good fuel for the rest of the year. And I think, Jason, he tends to do very well after these games. So take USC after Indiana. I would imagine he'll have one of his better games in Washington. But nonetheless, it does remind you there's a reason Luke's not top 3 quarterback on the draft boards. He's a very good college quarterback. I think he's going to get an extended stay in the NFL because of how accurate he can be. And if he's got the right pieces around him and a good line, I think he could be successful in the NFL as well. But no, he's not even Maeva, who, man, that dude was a freak yesterday. I know the efficiency says he is, but there's also eye test things where you see Maeva do things and make throws at a more consistent basis that make you go, wow. Luke, to me, what I love about watching Luke is I just trust him. And those mistakes yesterday, partly on the OSU defense, but partly on Luke, maybe sped up a little bit. I'm not sure, but yeah, he's very good. No, he's great. But to use that word that Brad Underwood so often loves to use, I don't know if he's elite. He is great, though. So don't sleep on the fact that I will miss Luke. I've loved watching him. I'm going to enjoy this last stretch with him as a quarterback. Don't take it for granted. I know you aren't. But, yeah, he struggled. And it's fair to point that out, Jason, against top 10 teams. From Billy, hopping in a bit late here, but generally feel okay about where we're at. Only reason I'm a little disappointed is having to watch Indiana arrive with basically no need to spend time developing. Billy, I hear you, but I'll just let you know. Cignetti is a unicorn. That's what he is. I've never seen a coach do this. And Jason mentions in the chat thread, too, that they got a lot of money from Mark Cuban, a guy named Eli Lilly. I'd have to look up who that is, but yeah. Cignetti is a unicorn. And he will get an insane offer, I'm sure, this offseason from an SEC program. Would he leave? I don't know. Because it might not actually be all that more attractive than what he has at Indiana. Crazy as that sounds. I mean, at Indiana, if he's getting the NIL resources, which it sounds like he is now, and he's already in position to make college football playoffs 2 years in a row, then why leave? I don't know. I think he might stay. Andrew, good to see you in there. Definitely more bummed and annoyed than angry. It sucks to get your chance at Goliath and sit and watch 4 hours of your team making oopsies and ending up on the ass end of every call. That was what it felt like, Andrew. And again, it wasn't the officiating why you lost, but it had this snowball effect. It just made it more annoying. But hey, as Andrew continues, like others have said, we did lose to Iowa 37-0 at home, like Wisconsin. How do you let Iowa score 37? Great question, Andrew. Or Penn State losing to Northwestern at home. Penn State will be sub 500 soon. Yeah, they will. And I'm enjoying every minute of it, Andrew. Every minute of it. Love it. From Brett. Development is all well and good, but when those players only develop into barely playable Power 4 players, the talent discrepancy is painfully obvious against the top tier of the Big Ten the last 2 years. Brett, that's fair. And that is a question we need to ask ourselves. Do we want to be competing for Big Ten championships? Well, I think the answer is yes, of course. Then the question is, how realistic is that? And I'm not trying to be defeatist, Brett, but while we have been aided by NIL and we've been able to climb into that second tier, and I think we can stay in that second tier, how do you get to that next one? I think Bret Bielema is a really good coach. I keep using this word. I don't think Bret Bielema is an elite coach. He's not infallible, but he's our guy, and I'm glad that he's our guy. He is the best coach in my lifetime. At least I don't remember Makovic, but I think that Bielema is every bit as good as that. Okay, so he's a great coach. He's not a Cignetti. Would Bielema have as much success at Ohio State as Ryan Day? Maybe, but Ryan Day also, the record kind of speaks for itself. I don't care how much money they're getting. The guy's like 78-6 or something ridiculous. Dan Lanning at Oregon. Would you trade him for Bret Bielema? Well, I don't know. This is the tricky thing. How much is coaching? How much is resources? I think Bret's a great coach. I think with equal resources to an Ohio State, yes, he would win a Big Ten title. It's just very difficult to do in this day and age. But you fortunately are using the NIL environment to your advantage to climb to an upper tier and hang there. And I think they will. And I'm okay with that, Brett, but I understand why you would say, well, come on, man. Like, and I wouldn't say barely playable power forward players. When you speak of the development, Matthew Bailey's not a barely playable power forward player. He had a bad game at Purdue, but he's pretty good. And Jaheim Clark developed. He's pretty good. Luke Altmaier was a transfer. And if you mean player development like high school recruiting, the 2026 class looks really good. And you're having the kind of season that's going to retain those guys. You aren't going to be losing any of them, I wouldn't think. So I get what you're saying, Brett, but on the other hand, I think that I wouldn't say what you said is unfair, but I think they've developed some pretty good players, and they're sending guys to the league. So, yeah. From Billy, I agree, Billy. O-line needs Flowers. They were very good yesterday. And that's another reason I'm encouraged going forward, Billy, because we've seen it every year. Second half of the season, they're better. Well, that bodes well as you go to Washington and come back against Rutgers and the rest of the games. From Sun Taurus, D-line was non-existent. Back end played decent. Not being able to run the ball all season at will is a huge problem. Disagree with D-line being non-existent. OSU couldn't get the run game going. You were plugging up those holes. I thought the D-line played pretty well. You just weren't sending blitzes, and you weren't able to get home with only 4 against Ohio State. Now, if that were to happen the whole game against Rutgers, yeah, then I'd say D-line, what the hell? I don't have that feeling after yesterday. St. Dom, what's up, St. Dom? Cignetti reminds me of Nick Saban. He's going to get a lot of coaches fired. Cignetti is proving what I always thought. Players are important, but still all about coaching. 17-2 at Indiana. He is a unicorn, St. Dom. The guy is incredible. Let's see here. Also from St. Dom, what is Cignetti doing that Bret Bielema is not doing in year 5? Yeah, guys, stop comparing to Cignetti. I'm just saying, like, Bret Bielema is great. He's not Cignetti. Cignetti is a freak show, and I mean that as a compliment. Like, the guy is an absolute freak. I can't even hate on it. Just tip your cap and say, dude, what you're doing is historic. It's incredible. I have seen Indiana football my entire life be middling nothing. I saw Antoine Randall make 0 bowl games, I think. So, yeah. All right, let's see if I missed anything else here. A little bit of side conversation in the chat thread. From Seth, Washington will be tricky with Walters running their defense, but the rest of the schedule is pretty soft. 9-10 wins should happen. Yeah, Seth, even if we grant a tough game at Washington that maybe you lose, you don't pull out, okay, fine. Then I think you do have to win out. I think that's a fair expectation for what this team put on themselves, and I think from afar what we think they should do as well. Let's see here. More of the Indiana-Oregon conversation. Nice little back and forth there. Yeah, St. Dom thinks Bret should fire his coordinators. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not sold on Aaron Henry, but yesterday was fine. I'm not going to fire him after that. And I'm not firing Barry Lundy because I like Barry Lundy. I like what he does as offensive coordinator. I don't know, guys. Hey, it's always a good spot to be critical from even when you're winning. I mean, God knows I've done that with Brad Underwood because I think Brad Underwood could win a title here, but it's like, well, clean up this, that, and the other. But no, I don't think yesterday necessitates any sort of huge changes. There's still more good than bad in this 5-2 start. And this is still a team capable of winning 9, maybe 10 games. Washington is big. And I'll admit that. And if Washington is a mess and you look flustered and make a bunch of mistakes on the road, okay, well, are we going to stagnate in that 7-8 win mark? Which, again, we all would have said we're happy with. Well, you go 10-3, and all of a sudden, with all these returning guys, you have higher expectations, and that's okay. It's a balancing act with these expectations we have on the team. I would imagine they have higher expectations than even we do. But I don't know. I feel okay after yesterday. And I don't think I'm just saying that to try to protect myself for whatever reason. But here's what we're going to do. We'll be back midweek, bi-week pod, just kind of discuss, maybe open up the mailbag or something like that. We can't talk basketball then because KenPom did come out and Illinois is number 6. 6 on KenPom. Not 6-7, kids. 6. So we'll talk about that a little bit on Wednesday as well. But as it stands, Illinois enters the bye week 5-2. I can tell I'm losing my voice now thanks to that extremely dry air and a full day of tailgating. So I better get out of here before I completely lose it. Got to thank our sponsors, Hamilton Walkers in downtown Champaign, State Farm agent Brian Hansen, online at brianismyguy.com, Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Schedule that furnace check at 217-841-4728. And Owen Builders, LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com. Get a free quote while you're there. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Got a little bit over 100 people watching live on this Sunday morning. Enjoy your NFL Sunday. Sorry, Cubs fans, for last night. Not much baseball for me to watch going forward. But you got a good football team. They aren't elite, but they're pretty good. And there's still a lot of games in front of them, and they have a chance to write a pretty cool chapter in Illini football history when all is said and done this season as well. I'm excited to go on that ride with them. Big game, of course, next Saturday, but a much-needed break this week. So, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday. It is the 200 level.